Chapter 5, Douluo Continent. For some reason, the child who had been crying moments ago suddenly became calm when enveloped by the pale golden light, standing there somewhat dazed. Tiny points of yellow light flew out from the black stones on the ground, entering the child's body. The child's body began to tremble lightly, wanting to scream but unable to make a sound. "Extend your right hand." Su Yuntao's piercing green eyes fixed on the child, commanding in an authoritative tone. The child obediently extended his right hand and immediately, all the points of light surged out. After a brief moment, a sickle appeared in his palm. It was clear that the sickle wasn't a mere illusion, but a tangible object. Su Yuntao furrowed his brows. It's a spirit of weapons, a sickle. Can a weapon-type martial soul be used as a weapon? It's probably possible, though it may be a bit forced. The golden light gradually faded. The boy looked somewhat confused as he stared at the small sickle in his palm, unsure of what to do. Su Yuntao said, "Your martial soul is a sickle, a weapon-type martial soul. Come here. Let me check if you have soul power. Even if it's a weapon-type martial soul, you can still become a battle soul master if you have soul power. After all, the sickle does have a certain offensive ability." "Master, what should I do?" the boy asked in fear. Su Yuntao replied indifferently, "Use your mind to retract the martial soul. When you want to use it again in the future, you can call it out with your mind." The boy struggled for a while but finally retracted the sickle. Su Yuntao handed him a blue crystal ball and motioned for him to place his right hand on it. The boy hesitated and placed his small hand, contrasting against Su Yuntao's wolf-like claws. On the crystal ball, the difference being extremely noticeable. After a moment, Su Yuntao expressed some disappointment, saying, "No soul power. You can't become a soul master. Please step aside." The same scene repeated for the next few children. One by one, their martial souls were awakened. Their martial souls were mostly tools like hoes or sickles, and none of them had any animals as their martial souls. As for soul power, Su Yuntao declared that none of them had it. Finally, the seventh child, the last one before Tang San, stepped forward. Having performed the same ritual repeatedly, Su Yuntao seemed a little weary, but he still made an effort to complete the awakening process for all 8 children. Golden light gathered. And this time there was no tool-like martial soul. Instead, a small light blue blade of grass appeared in the palm of the last girl. It gently floated in the air. Tang San vaguely felt that this small blue grass seemed familiar to him. It didn't take long for him to recall that it was called blue-silver grass, a type of plant that could be found everywhere in the village. It was as common as weeds in his previous world, and apart from its stubborn vitality, it didn't have any other special qualities. However, since the little girl was surrounded by a faint golden aura, he didn't recognize it at first. Though it wasn't a farming tool, Su Yuntao's eyes showed disappointment, but his words became clearer. "This is a useless martial soul. It has no offensive power, no defensive abilities, and no auxiliary capabilities. Blue-silver grass is the typical form of a useless martial soul." As he spoke, he moved to place the crystal ball in front of the girl. Already expecting to confirm his assumption, no soul power appeared. Finally, it was Tang San's turn. Without needing to be called, he stepped directly into the center of the 6 black stones. As Su Yuntao poured his soul power into them, the pale golden light began to shine again. Warmth, that was the first sensation Tang San felt. It was as if he were enveloped in a warm world. A comfort beyond description. No wonder the previous child had calmed down when surrounded by this golden light. The warm energy seeped into his body, and Tang San clearly sensed that his inner energy, the Xiantian skill, seemed to change ever so slightly. Soon, under the guidance of this warm energy, it felt as if something inside him had been crushed. In an instant, the warm energy surged towards his hand. Su Yuntao's eyes suddenly brightened. A brilliant golden light began to radiate from him, and the points of light appeared much larger than those surrounding the other children. He vaguely sensed that finally, someone with a powerful martial soul had appeared, and his mood instantly lifted. For the spirit hall deacons like Su Yuntao, if they could awaken a child with extraordinary potential and bring them into the spirit hall, it would gain them a great deal of recognition and be very beneficial for promotion. But soon, Su Yuntao's excitement turned to disappointment. Tang San raised his right hand instinctively. What he saw was a shade of blue. This blue, once again, appeared for the second time in the spirit hall of this village. Blue-silver grass, exactly the same as the one the girl had earlier. A standard, useless martial soul. Su Yuntao said helplessly, "You have a useless martial soul. It looks like this trip to Holy Soul Village has been a waste of time. Children, you can go now." A moment ago, the large amount of golden light had filled him with great hope, but seeing only blue-silver grass now left him feeling disappointed. "Uncle, you haven't tested my soul power yet." Tang San, seeing Su Yuntao about to take the crystal ball away, quickly reminded him. Su Yuntao didn't even turn his head. "No need to test. I've never seen anyone with soul power who has a blue-silver grass martial soul. Please let me try," Tang San insisted. The warmth brought by the golden light as it circulated through his body was very peculiar. It felt like a large door had opened. And he felt that the Xiantian skill within him had undergone small changes. At the same time, he was very curious to see how his inner energy and this martial soul world differed. Su Yuntao paused, then turned around to face Tang San's calm and determined gaze. He thought to himself that this child seemed a little different from others. All right then. Trying his soul power wouldn't take much time. He handed the crystal ball to Tang San. Following Su Yuntao's method, Tang San focused and retracted his blue-silver grass into his body. He realized that it wasn't difficult. By using the control from his Xiantian skill, he was able to pull it back in. He also noticed that when the blue-silver grass appeared, it seemed as though his Xiantian skill had activated, almost as if the blue grass had been formed by his inner energy. As soon as Tang San touched the blue crystal ball, his body trembled violently. He was startled to discover that the blue crystal ball, which looked so beautiful, had an immense attraction. It felt as though his inner energy had found an outlet and was pouring out forcefully. He wanted to resist, but no matter what, he couldn't escape its pull. Su Yuntao was equally shocked. While he had been performing the final test as a formality in Holy Soul Village, the blue crystal ball in his hand suddenly brightened. The blue light, starting from a single point, spread out in an instant. In the blink of an eye, the crystal ball shimmered like a glowing gem. The soft blue glow was mesmerizing. According to the testing tradition, as long as the crystal ball showed any reaction, even the slightest glimmer, it meant the person had soul power. The crystal ball before him was sparkling so brilliantly and the light was so intense it could only mean one thing. Good heavens, it's actually innate full soul power. A flash of light erupted from Su Yuntao's body as the crystal ball flew out of Tang San's hand. His gaze at the young boy changed completely, as though he were looking at a monster. Tang San immediately noticed the difference in his situation compared to the other children. He asked in confusion, "Uncle, what is innate full soul power?" Su Yuntao stared blankly at him for a moment, then realized and explained, when a martial soul awakens, aside from the form that determines its strength, the amount of soul power is very important. Most people, like the children here, have no soul power when their martial souls awaken. They will never become soul masters. However, as long as soul power appears even a tiny bit, it means they can start cultivating. The amount of soul power at the moment of martial soul awakening is crucial as it determines how high or low a soul master's starting cultivation will be. The higher the innate soul power, the faster the cultivation will progress, and the person will naturally gain comprehension faster than others. Innate full soul power means the highest possible soul power right at the moment of martial soul awakening. Highest soul power? Tang San looked at Su Yuntao, his thoughts racing. He didn't know how much soul power he had, but he could be sure that the energy the crystal ball absorbed was his inner energy from the Xiantian skill. Could it be that his inner energy had turned into soul power in this world? Perhaps due to the shock brought by Tang San's innate full soul power, Su Yuntao, not seeing any further trouble, explained, "The levels of our martial souls are classified in this way. Each 10 levels represents a rank. As long as the martial soul awakens, it can be called a soul scholar. Of course, it's the first rank. Soul scholar. The rank is determined by the strength of the martial soul. For someone with innate full soul power, or at the moment of awakening, soul power can reach the highest level of the 10th rank. I've never met anyone with innate full soul power. When I awakened, I only had second-level soul power." Tang San was now fully alert. Finally, having found a real soul master, he wouldn't let this opportunity slip by. He quickly asked the question that had been lingering in his mind, "So, innate full soul power can only reach level 10? It can't go higher?" The golden light around Su Yuntao's body withdrew, and he retracted his martial soul, saying, "Of course it can't. The strength of a soul master doesn't increase easily. Every time you advance to a higher rank, not only must your soul power reach the peak of that rank, but you must also obtain a soul ring. Without a soul ring, no matter how much you try to cultivate, you won't be able to progress to the next rank. So, like you now, because your innate soul power has reached its limit. If you want to continue increasing your soul power, you need to obtain a soul ring. Only after that can you continue cultivating. Tang San immediately said. The soul ring is the glowing ring around you, right? Since you're a level 26, you have 2 soul rings. Si Yuntao nodded and said, yes, exactly. Your situation is very special. Having innate full soul power at its limit is a rare talent. Unfortunately, it's really unfortunate. It's a useless martial soul. It seems your martial soul is just a tool that's a little stronger than the discarded blue-silver grass. If that's the case, I could have. He trailed off. But Tang San vaguely understood what he meant. It was as if a part of the mystery in his mind had been revealed. Tang San, always someone who thought deeply, reflected on what Si Yuntao had said. His inner energy and soul power were similar. So when entering this world, his inner energy had transformed into soul power. However, the reason his Xian Tian skill couldn't reach the 2nd level was because he lacked a soul ring. In other words, to improve, he would have to follow the same path as soul masters and acquire a soul ring first. But what exactly was a soul ring? Just as Tang San was about to ask further, Si Yuntao pulled him towards the door. Old Jack. The door opened and Old Jack, looking anxious, asked Si Yuntao, Master, what's the result? Is there any child in our village who can become a soul master this year? Si Yuntao glanced at him and sighed, saying there is one, but it's a pity. Old Jack's eyes showed a look of disbelief and confusion as he asked, Master, so in the end? Si Yuntao replied, out of the 8 children this year, only one has soul power, and it's innate full soul power. Unfortunately, his martial soul is blue-silver grass. Do you understand now? Asterisk blue-silver grass asterisk? Innate full soul power? My heavens. The disappointment on Old Jack's face was even more intense than Su Yuntao's. As the village chief for many years, he clearly understood what innate full soul power meant. But having innate full soul power and a blue-silver grass martial soul was truly, Master, is it really impossible to cultivate blue-silver grass? Old Jack asked, frowning. Si Yuntao could sense Old Jack's disappointment, so he didn't speak arrogantly. He patted Old Jack on the shoulder and said, it's not that it's completely impossible to cultivate. But do you think blue-silver grass as a martial soul will evolve into any form? A useless martial soul is still a useless martial soul. Even if he becomes a soul master, he'll likely just be a useless soul master. It's truly a pity. Alright, I'm leaving. I have to go to the next village. Si Yuntao didn't wait for Tang San to ask further and left the village. Without Si Yuntao, Tang San had no choice but to go to Old Jack and ask the question that had been bothering him. Grandpa Jack, what exactly is a soul ring? How does one obtain a soul ring? Old Jack, still lost in the conversation with Si Yuntao, answered absent-mindedly, I don't really know what a soul ring is. To get a soul ring, it seems you have to hunt soul beasts. That's a very dangerous task and only soul masters can do it.